Thank you. Although President Lee Myung-bak has already met with President Obama a couple of times before, this will be the first time for the U.S. leader to visit Seoul. So there is a lot of attention being paid to what subjects they will discuss and how it could affect bilateral ties. The seemingly never-ending North Korean nuclear issue, of course, will be on the agenda, with many also expecting that the meeting will focus heavily on urging the ratification of the cross-FTA, as well as the Korean government's decision in late October to send troops to Afghanistan. To hear more about the potential impact of Obama's visit here, I met up with a few experts to get their take on the bilateral summit.
United States President Barack Obama's final stop on his four-nation Asian tour is in Korea, where he will hold talks with President Lee Myung-bak on a number of important issues. And prior coming to Korea, Obama raised hope for creating an Asia-Pacific free trade region, one that sees Asian and Pacific markets more open to American products. And as the long-delayed Korea-US free trade agreement is expected to be discussed by the two leaders, trade specialist Dr. Choi Byung-il believes that Obama is also hinting at Korea to open up more.
Basically, U.S. government is saying to Asian and Pacific economic leaders, it's time to open up this Asian and Pacific market rather than focus on U.S. market. So putting that in the context of COROS-FTA, it's well known as open secret to the public that the U.S. is not quite happy, especially U.S. labor union and some automobile manufacturers are not quite happy about some aspect of COROS-FTA.
Korea and the U.S. signed a free trade agreement in June 2007, but it has been pending ratification now for over 2 years. And one of the main reasons behind the long-delayed trade pact is the U.S. claiming an imbalance in auto trade.
What outcome do you expect after the meeting between President Obama and President Lee Myung-bak?
Well, I don't think quite a drastic outcome out of this, the summit, because, the reason why U.S. has been so delayed in trade policy is, number one, their domestic politics is in terrible shape. So first of all, they need to care of their health care reform, and second, climate change bill, and third, Afghan issues, and so on. If and only if those issues are moving on, then U.S. might be politically ready to move on second aspect.
And of course, North Korea and its nuclear issue will be one of the major topics at the summit. The Obama administration may consider a softer posture towards Pyongyang compared to the Bush administration, but North Korea specialist Brian Myers doesn't think so.
We've seen some conciliatory gestures from the North Koreans since President Obama took office. Perhaps the most important one was the freeing of those two American journalists in August. But President Obama has responded quite warily. He has said, look, North Koreans, if you want to talk to us in a bilateral format or in a six-party format, fine, but the sanctions are going to stay in place until we see some real evidence of a desire to disarm.
The North Korean nuclear issue is a hot topic on Obama's Asian tour, and when he was in Japan, the U.S. president made a point to mention how he wished to create a world free of nuclear weapons and for peace in Northeast Asia.
Our goal is a non-nuclear Korean peninsula. That's vital for the security of East Asia. And the United States and Japan, with the other members of the six-party talks, will continue to work to show North Korea that there is a pathway, a door, for them to rejoin the international community.
I think we are going to see this summit functioning primarily as a kind of shoulder-to-shoulder photo opportunity. Both presidents are going to reiterate their fundamental agreement in regard to North Korea. They're going to renew their invitation to Pyongyang to engage in serious disarmament talks. At the same time, I think they're going to issue a warning in no uncertain terms to the North Koreans not to repeat the kind of provocation that we saw last week in the Yellow Sea.
The U.S. administration continues to try to bring North Korea back to the negotiation table and plans to send an envoy to Pyongyang in December to try and revive the dormant six-party nuclear talks. Another major issue the two leaders are expected to discuss is the deployment of Korean troops to Afghanistan, as the Korean government announced its plan to do so on October 30th.
이에 따라 정부는 아프가니스탄의 안정화와 재건을 위한 노력에 보다 적극 동참하기 위하여 아프가니스탄 지방재건팀 PRT를 확대 설치기로 결정하였습니다.
The Afghan is now really deserves our support because we have the same experience for the last 50 years, particularly after the end of the Korean War. Many countries, did came to the support and aid of South Korea. We really want to pay back all kinds of benefits we have received from the international world.
Although the Korean government believes the country should contribute in international efforts to help reconstruct the war-torn country by dispatching troops, there is growing opposition to the plan.
양국 정상이 만날 때 아프가니스탄은 평화 정착을 위한 보다 건설적인 군대 이외의 다른 방법을 합의하기를 기대합니다.
And with the number of military casualties there increasing, the timing of the government's decision couldn't have been worse. But some observers believe this could be the right time to show the world that Korea is willing to lend a helping hand to a country in need.
The timing of the South Korean decision that we are willing to send our additional PRTs and our additional military personnel is very important because it may prove to be a very important boost for the whole international world. So after the summit, and we're going to come to the details about how we can effectively and how much we can efficiently support the Afghan government and Afghan people in their efforts to rebuild its own country.
Right now, I suppose we'll have to wait until tomorrow to see what was discussed between President Yi and Obama then.
Now, in Beijing, President Obama did take some time off to look around the city, and I hear that he does have a similar plan here in Korea, even though he is going to be staying here for about 24 hours.
Mm-hmm. Well, so far, the only plan Obama has in Korea is the bilateral summit with President Yi, and some sources say a visit to a U.S. Force Korea base. There will be no town hall meetings like the ones in Japan and China, and his stay in Seoul really will barely last 24 hours out of his 8-day tour. There are no plans for the U.S. president in Seoul, but many observers say it is not necessarily a bad thing because he has already met with the Korean leader during the G20 conference in London in April, as well as President Yi's visit to Washington in June. We'll just have to wait and see how his visit to Korea will impact the two countries' relationship.
All right, Nadi, many thanks for that report.
Thank you.